Hello, what we're going to be covering in this video is lesson 1.4, which is control flow. So the first thing I want to talk about in relationship to control flow are the comparison operators that are used in if statements. So those comparison operators are the equality sign or the double equals, the not equal, the greater than or equal to, the less than, and the less than or equal to. And there's three logical operators that you can go ahead and combine with the comparison operators. Those are the and, which is the two ampersands, the or, which is the two bars, and the exclamation point, which is the not. So each if statement uses a comparison or logical operator to decide if something is true or false. That result determines what code to run or to go ahead and skip a block of code. You can go ahead and mix and match operators to create Boolean values. Again, Boolean values are true or false, and they're used to determine if code should be run or skipped. The most straightforward conditional statement is the if statement. So that's what we have on lines 10 through 13, or 11, 12, and 13. On line 10, we're setting sales equal to 90,000. And then on line 11, we're doing a comparison. We're checking to see if our sales, which is 90,000, is greater than or equal to 150,000. If this condition is true, then the code within the curly braces gets executed. So in Swift, curly braces are used to distinguish blocks of code. So when you write your if check and you have more than one line or one line of code that you want to get executed, if the if check is true, you would put those lines of code within curly braces. So we will go ahead and run this right now. And what we see is that when we compare 90 is not greater than or equal to 150,000, that turns out to be false. So what gets executed is the print statement. So the block of code within our curly braces does not get executed. If we go ahead and say change our sales to 165,000, rerun it, then our message does get printed out because our condition on line 11 is true. If you want to print something out, if a condition is false, then you would go ahead and add an else clause to your if statement. So you would use closing curly brace to go ahead and close your true block, and then you would use an opening and closing curly brace to include the code you want run if the condition turns out to be false. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and first run this. So we should see congrats, you've earned a bonus printed out twice, one from line 12 and the other from line 20. If I go ahead and change the sales back to 90,000, I rerun the code, then nothing above gets printed, and then down below are the code within our else block gets printed, which is unfortunately you have not earned a bonus for the year. You can go ahead and use the else if statement to declare more blocks of code to run based on any number of conditions. So that's what we're doing in lines 29 through 37. That is our if else if block of code. So what we're checking based on the amount of sales, the salesman or salesperson earns a specific bonus. So if they have greater than or equal to 225, it's 15%. Greater than or equal to 200, it's 10%. Greater than or equal to 150, it is 5%. So, and then if they haven't earned 150, they do not earn a bonus. So let me go ahead, and I think we set it up to for 90,000 right now, our sales is. So let me just go ahead and run this if statement. if-else block. So again, what happens is, unfortunately, you have not earned a bonus for the year. It gets printed out. And how this gets executed is, first, sales is compared to greater than or equal to 225. Uh, that's not true, so it goes to the false clause, which is another if statement. It checks to see if 90,000 is greater than or equal to 200. It is not, so it drops through to the next else if. It's not greater than or equal to 150,000, so it drops down to the closing else statement, and unfortunately you have not earned a bonus for the year. It gets displayed. If I go ahead, say, and increase the sales amount to, say, 250, and we rerun that same if-else if block, so let me just go ahead and rerun that. What we see is our statement that gets printed out is, congrats, you have earned a 15% bonus for the year. So what ends up happening is the first if clause is checked. And what happens is, this is actually true because 250 is greater than or equal to 225. So basically the print statement within the curly braces gets printed out. And then what happens is, after that gets printed out, you drop all the way down to line 38. So once a condition is true, the other conditions are not checked in an if-else if block. So it'll go ahead and drop down to line 38 once a condition turns out to be true. If one does not, then, like we saw in the previous example, it drops down to line 36 into the else clause. So you can go ahead and assign results of a logical operator to a Boolean constant or variable in order to have access to it later in your code. So that's what we're doing in this next block of code. Lines 43 through 48. 43, we're setting speed limit equal to 65. 44, we're setting your current speed equal to 70. So what we're doing on line 45 on the right of our assignment statement, we're actually doing a check. So we're checking to see if our speed limit, current speed, is greater than speed limit. If it is, then is speeding gets set to true. And if it is not, then is speeding gets set to false. So in this case, we should see true when we print out our is speeding constant, which we do. So again, you can go ahead. What happens in these statements is, anything on the right hand of the assignment statement gets executed, and then that value gets saved to our named constant on the left side of the statement. So if we change this to, say, 63 and rerun it, is speeding should get set to false now. And when we rerun it, it gets set to false. So it's also possible to invert a bool value using the logical not operator. So this is one of the not operators, and it's an exclamation point. So what it does is, it just, if a Boolean value is false and you apply the not operator to that Boolean value, it reverses it, so it changes it to true. And that's what we're doing in this example. Switch is on equals to false, but then what we're doing here is we're applying the not operator to our switch is on Boolean value, so it inverts it, so it changes it to true, and then the print statement on line 55 gets printed out. So we will just go ahead and run that, so it prints out the switch is on. If we go ahead and change this to true, and we go ahead and run this code, nothing should get printed out, because what happens is that not operator changes our true to false, so this turns out to be false, and it just drops down to 57. If we remove the not operator and we reran this code, we should get something printed out, because we're not reversing it. Switches on is equal to true, and print switches on gets printed out. So the other two operators we're going to talk about are the AND and the OR operator. So the logical AND operators represented by ampersands, and it checks to see if two or more conditions are true. And in order for this condition down below, when you're using the AND operator, all conditions must be true for the entire condition to evaluate to true. So what we're doing here is we're setting temperature equal to 85, and we're checking to see if it's within a range of 75 and 95. If it is, then we're going to print out the temperature is just right. So if I go ahead and run this code, 85 is greater than or equal to 75, and 85 is less than or equal to 95. So this condition evaluates to true because both the condition on the left side and the condition on the right side are true. So it'll go ahead and print out the temperatures just right. Say for instance, if I decrease the temperature to 70 and I rerun this block of code, this first condition turns out to be false because when we combine the two conditions, our first one, 70, is not greater than or equal to 75. So this is false. And then what it does is, since this first condition turns out to be false, it does not even check the second condition. That's what we call a short circuit logical operator. So it doesn't even bother to check the second condition. It just moves down to the next else if statement. And is the temperature less than 75? It is, so it prints out it is too cold. If we change the temperature to 100 and rerun this, we get is too hot printed out. So how that runs is temperature 100 is greater than 75, so that evaluates to true on the left hand side of our AND operator. So it checks to see if 100 is less than or equal to 95. It is not. It evaluates to false. So this combined condition using the AND operator is false. So it'll drop down to our else if. 100 is not less than 75, so that is false. So what it does is it prints out whatever's in our else block. The other logical operator is the OR operator, and it's represented by the two bars, and it checks to see if either one of two conditions is true. So in order for the combined condition, when you're using an OR operator, is true, only one of the condition needs to be true. If one is true and one is false, the OR operator still evaluates to true. If both conditions are false, then it evaluates to false, and if they're both true, it'll evaluate to true. So what we have here is we have is plugged in is false. So what it'll do is it'll go ahead and evaluate our second condition to see if that is true or false. In our case here, has battery power is actually true. So this combined condition evaluates to true, and then what we print out is you can use your laptop. If we go ahead, say, and change the first one to true, and the second one to false, again, what'll happen with this OR statement is it'll go ahead and short circuit, because is plugged in evaluates to true. Only one condition within an OR statement needs to be true, so it will not even evaluate this variable. It'll go ahead and print this information out. So it'll short circuit and print, you can use your laptop. And then finally, if both are true, it'll print out. And now if both are false, then what'll happen is our combined statement will evaluate to false and will print out, oh my God, I cannot use my computer with the emoji. So that's what I wanted to cover in this video. So I will be back in a couple minutes to work through page number 2, and we get into switch statements on page number 2. So we will be talking to you in a few minutes.